A public, transparent tender for selection of judges to the Supreme Court is a key element of judicial reform in Ukraine. Lawyers and scholars were able to take part in the tender in addition to judges. It will be a team of people with different professions, who come there with a different vision of the development of jurisprudence, even a doctrinal one. They will come with their own experience from different regions, even with a different inner culture.
З різних регіонів, з різною навіть культурою своєю внутрішньою.
In November last year, the Supreme Qualifications Commission of Judges of Ukraine announced a tender for 120 vacant posts for judges of cassation courts in the Supreme Court.
Тому що треба виправдати.
The role is history, because the expectations of the Maidan must be justified. People's trust in the judicial system needs to be regained, and we must begin with ourselves. That's what we aim for. We do background checks before job interviews, in order to find out who those people are. They definitely must be legal experts, not simply populists.
Звичайно, треба, щоб це були не популісти, щоб це були фахівці.
The tender consisted of two stages. The first one was the testing stage. More than 1,000 legal issues with an emphasis on specialization had to be reviewed by the Tender Commission, which also had the practical task of preparing a court decision for resolution by the candidates. The second stage was studying the candidates' dossiers and conducting an interview with them. In addition, the Commission held additional tests on psychological capabilities and general abilities of the candidates.
In one instance, a written test marked by a machine, and you can't get much more objective than that when it comes to marking tests. There's been an exceptional degree of transparency in the process. If you go on the internet,
the Public Council of Integrity studied the dossier of each candidate and prepared a report. 37% of the submitted recommendations were accepted by the Commission. If a candidate received a negative conclusion, the Supreme Qualifications Commission, which consists of a maximum of 16 people, has to defeat it. If not, the candidate must receive 11 votes in favor of their support.
Кандидат має отримати 11 голосів у свою підтримку.
However, even after passing all the stages, the candidates still do not become judges of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Council of Justice must review and the President of Ukraine must approve the selected candidates. I would like to see a Supreme Court that will not embarrass me, a body that will have highly professional and qualified people who have not lost their conscience throughout their lives, who are virtuous and professionally ethical. After all, this is because I live in this country and my children live in this country. According to the reform, the classic three-tier judicial system will operate in Ukraine. The courts of the first instance will include not only local courts, but also new higher specialized courts, the Anti-Corruption Court and the Intellectual Property Court. The second level of courts is appellate courts. And the third tier is the new Supreme Court. In some cases, the Supreme Court will act both as the court of the first and appellate instances.
Existing highest court and the three courts immediately beneath it are being liquidated, to use the terminology of the legislation, and they're being replaced by a completely new Supreme Court. All right, judges in the courts that are being liquidated can apply for positions on that court.
For elected judges to start working, there must be at least 65 of them. That is the number at which the Supreme Court becomes plenipotentiary. Next, they have to gather a plenum. From that moment, serious painstaking work will begin.